You read people faster than most. You walk into a room and within minutes you know who's performing, who's hurting, who's about to cause a problem. You've been told you're too sensitive, too intense, or that you think too much. And you've probably spent a significant portion of your life wondering why you see things other people simply don't. Here's what nobody told you. That ability didn't come from nowhere. It came from somewhere very specific. And it cost you something to develop it. There's a form of intelligence that doesn't show up on IQ tests. It doesn't get celebrated at graduation. It doesn't come from books or classrooms or any environment that was actually safe and comfortable. It comes from surviving things. From having to understand people deeply, quickly, accurately, because at some point in your life, getting it wrong wasn't just embarrassing. It was dangerous. Psychologists and trauma researchers are increasingly recognizing this pattern, and some are calling it exactly what it is: traumatic intelligence. The rarest, most expensive form of smart there is. Today we're going to walk through 10 signs you might have it. And fair warning, this one might hit close to home. Sign 1. You can read a room instantly. You walk in. 3 seconds. You already know the tension in the air, who's upset with whom, what's being said underneath what's actually being said. It feels almost automatic, like a switch you can't turn off even when you'd like to. This is hypervigilance functioning as social intelligence. When someone grows up in an unpredictable environment, an emotionally volatile parent, an unstable household, a social setting where threats came without warning, the brain adapts. It rewires itself to scan constantly, to detect micro shifts in tone, posture, and energy. Over time, that scanning becomes so refined it looks like a superpower. And in many ways it is. You're not imagining things. You've just been trained by experience to notice what most people's nervous systems are still too relaxed to catch. Sign 2. You're an expert at reading people's hidden emotions. You know when someone says, "I'm fine," and they are absolutely not fine. You feel it. You might even know why they're not fine before they do. People have. Sometimes it's a gift. Sometimes it's exhausting. The psychological mechanism here is called effective attunement, the ability to synchronize with someone else's emotional state at a deep, almost involuntary level. For people with traumatic intelligence, this developed early as a survival skill. When you needed to predict the emotional weather of an adult to keep yourself safe, you got very good at reading clouds. That skill doesn't retire just because the storm is over. Sign 3. You overthink every interaction after it happens. The conversation ended 20 minutes ago. You're in the shower replaying it. Did you say something wrong? How did it land? What did that pause mean? Were they annoyed? You dissect it with the precision of someone who has a lot of experience with consequences. This is the shadow side of that finely tuned awareness. The same system that makes you perceptive also makes it nearly impossible to let a social interaction go unanalyzed. Because for a long time, missing a cue had real consequences. The brain learned, review everything. Leave nothing unexamined. Even now, when the stakes are ordinary, the system still runs the old protocol. Sign, sorry, comes out of your mouth before your brain has even assessed whether an apology is warranted. You apologize for taking up space, for asking questions, for existing in situations where you're entirely welcome. People sometimes tell you to stop apologizing and you apologize for apologizing. This one runs deep. Chronic apologizing in traumatically intelligent people often traces back to environments where their presence, needs, or emotions were treated as burdens. The nervous system learned early: reduce friction, stay small, preempt conflict. The apology isn't weakness. It's an old armor that doesn't fit anymore, but the body hasn't gotten the memo yet. Sign 5. You have an unusual relationship with trust. You don't give it easily. Maybe you give it in layers, a little here, then you wait and watch. Or maybe you've gone the other direction and learned to trust too fast, too fully, because somewhere along the way you confused intensity with safety. Either way, your relationship with trust is anything but casual. Trauma rewires how the brain assesses safety in relationships. The hippocampus and amygdala, the brain's filing system for memory and threat, store relational experiences in vivid detail. If trust was broken early, and broken significantly, the brain updates its model of people accordingly. Traumatically intelligent people don't distrust out of pessimism. They distrust out of data. Very painful, very formative data. Sign 6. You're highly creative, especially in dark or complex themes. Your mind goes to places other people's don't. Your writing, your humor, your problem solving, there's a depth to it, sometimes a darkness, that surprises people. You're drawn to stories about survival, complexity, redemption. Simple, surface level things bore you quickly. Creativity and trauma share neurological real estate. When the brain has processed significant pain, it develops a richer internal landscape, more associations, more emotional range, more capacity for nuance. Many of the most profound artists, writers, and thinkers in history weren't just talented. They were people whose inner worlds had been expanded, uncomfortably, by experience. Sign 7. You have a strong sense of justice, almost to a fault. Something in you cannot look away from what's unfair. You feel injustice physically. When someone is mistreated, even a stranger, even in a movie, something activates in you that most people can just scroll past. And it bothers you that they can scroll past it. This is moral hyperawareness, and it's deeply connected to having experienced powerlessness. When you've been in situations where someone should have intervened and didn't, the nervous system makes a vow: I will not be that person. The result is a finely calibrated, sometimes relentless sensitivity to wrong, a compass that never fully powers down. Sign 8. You're exhausted by small talk but starving for real connection. Parties are draining. Pleasantries feel hollow. But put you in a conversation about someone's real fears, their actual life, what keeps them up at night, and suddenly you're the most present, engaged person in the room. You can do small talk. You're probably even good at it. But it costs you something. Traumatically intelligent people develop their relational skills in deep water. Connection, for them, was never casual, it was survival. So the shallow end of the pool feels pointless. Not. Because their nervous system was built for depth, and depth is where they finally feel at home. Sign 9. You struggle to ask for help, even when you desperately need it. You figured things out alone. You had to. And now, even when help is available, even when people are offering it genuinely, something in you resists. You'll exhaust every internal resource before you reach outward. And when you finally do ask, it feels enormous, like admitting something that should be private. Self-reliance, for many traumatically intelligent people, wasn't a value they chose. It was a response to an environment where needing things was unsafe or consistently disappointing. The nervous system took notes. Don't depend. Manage it yourself. Unlearning that is some of the most important and most difficult work a person can do. Sign 10. You know yourself deeply, and that knowledge was hard-won. You've done the reflection. You've sat with the uncomfortable questions. You know your triggers, your patterns, your contradictions. Not because someone handed you a self-help book. Because your life required it. Because understanding yourself was part of how you survived. This is perhaps the defining mark of traumatic intelligence. It is self-knowledge that was earned in the dark, refined by difficulty, sharpened by pain. And carried forward as something that is unmistakably, irreversibly yours. So, how many of those landed? 1 or 2, or did you lose count somewhere around sign 4? Traumatic intelligence is not something to be romanticized. The cost of developing it was real and it was significant. But it is also not nothing. The way you read people, protect others, feel deeply, create richly, and persist quietly, that matters. You matter. If this reflected something you've never quite had language for before, drop a comment. And if someone in your life carries this kind of intelligence without knowing it, quietly perceptive, quietly exhausted, quietly remarkable, share this with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing is simply being seen.